when the military sends people off to war, they make all of them do estate planning. And so there's this idea that, hey, why aren't we helping healthcare providers put legal plans in place so that they can have the peace of mind that their families are taken care of, both while they're still alive and working during the surge, and also, unfortunately, for the very real possibility that they could become very seriously ill themselves.
You're listening to Law and the Pandemic, a production of UC Hastings Law School and its Center on Legal Technology and Innovation, LexLab. We're your co-hosts. I'm Drew Amerson.
And I'm Arika Smith. Today we speak with Professor Sarah Hooper about how to complete an advanced care directive in the age of social distancing. Professor Hooper is Executive Director of the UCSF UC Hastings Consortium on Law, Science, and Health Policy. Her research focuses on legal issues in aging and dementia care, including healthcare decision-making and informed consent.
Professor Hooper, I understand you recently hosted a webinar on COVID-related advanced care planning. Can you share, for those of us who didn't get to attend this webinar, what are the main takeaways? What should we be thinking about with our advanced care planning in the time of COVID?
Yeah, so the pandemic is accelerating interest in advanced care planning because everyone is now at heightened risk for serious illness and hospitalization. People are watching very painful news reports of patients being in the hospital alone and unable to see their family members. Unfortunately, some of them dying without family members able to be present. And so it's a really important moment, I think, across the country where people are reflecting on what they would want if they get seriously ill. So what we talked about are, what are the online tools to help facilitate remote planning, since there's now, I think, a bit more interest in how we can prepare for these moments should they come for us. And how do we prepare for them when we aren't able to gather in person as we normally would to fill them out? So there are some good tools available to facilitate that planning, but state law still creates kind of practical barriers to their use. So many of them, you fill them out online, but then most states require you to download them, sign them, and then get them witnessed or notarized. And if you live in a nursing home, which is a very vulnerable population, as we all know, you also have to have them witnessed by the long-term care ombudsman. And in most states, even the long-term care ombudsman isn't able to go into the nursing home to visit people.
Can you talk a bit more about what is a long-term care ombudsman?
Yeah, a long-term care ombudsman is the person authorized in every state to look out for nursing home residents, to make sure that they have an advocate in the nursing home facility, and different states structure that role differently. But in this particular instance, their role would be to make sure that the advanced directive that someone is signing, or the POLST, that they are signing it without any pressure from the nursing home or from anyone else.
Got it. And this all has to be done in person.
Yeah, so normally when we think of estate planning, we think of this big moment where we are thoughtful about our wishes, and then we gather with our lawyer, our healthcare provider, our family, and we do signing and witnessing in person. But of course, that's not possible right now. And our laws are well behind kind of where we're at technologically as a society. They were written with that assumption that you can convene in person. Federal law recognizing digital execution of contracts explicitly carved out estate planning documents. So you would think, well, I'm able to sign contracts and do all kinds of things online. But on the federal side, at least, we have very little to no guidance about how to do that with estate planning documents. In addition, the vast majority of states have no legislation regarding online advanced directives, and a few have affirmatively said that they will not recognize them. I think because of concerns about abuse. So 4 states have legislation around online advance directives: California, Illinois, Maryland, and Texas. And I will tell you that they're a little bit varied. And even though we have such legislation in California, there remain some unanswered questions about how to practically do it.
What do I do if I want to set up an advanced care directive and I need to sign it online, and some people of course have limited access to technology? I mean, what are our options?
Yeah. So I'll say, well, first I'll focus on California law when answering, because that's where we are. Um, it varies throughout the country. We think it's possible to execute these documents remotely given existing California law, but clarification at the state level would be incredibly helpful. This is something that Cuomo has already done through executive order in New York, and it would be very helpful if Governor Newsom would do something similar in California. But I think a fair reading of our existing statutes would allow us to complete these remotely. So, one thing you can do is complete your form using an online tool. There are a lot available that you can find, and I'll talk about one in a little bit. And then you can fill it out, and then you can send it via email or snail mail to your 2 witnesses. California law doesn't require witnesses to actually watch you sign, so it's okay to do this asynchronously like this. So it'd be okay to sign it, send to them, have them sign it, and send back. However, some people feel more comfortable by sending everyone the document, gathering everyone via Zoom, and then signing at the same time, and then having everyone send their copy and compiling it. And so I'm not endorsing Zoom necessarily. You could use FaceTime, or you could use other things. For people who don't have Zoom or FaceTime access, we think that this would be permissible by phone as well, since again, there's nothing in the statute as we read it that requires the witness to actually see you sign it. Again, this is another area where having some clarification would really, I think, put a lot of us at ease. But Arika, as you pointed out, a lot of this sounds simple enough. But if you think about what it actually requires, it can be very challenging for a lot of people to do this. It assumes that you are able-bodied enough to complete and sign the form on your own and without help, that you have 2 people you know who are qualified to be witnesses under the statute, and there are restrictions on who can be a witness. And that all 3 of you have the time and ability to mail documents back and forth, or to find time when you can all gather by Zoom. And I will tell you that the people who are most vulnerable to COVID and who would most benefit from having their wishes heard, and who historically haven't had their wishes heard, are also the people who struggle with many or all of these things. They are people who are already very sick and frail, so they need help completing forms. They have very strained or no social networks. So if you have family who are essential workers, working hourly jobs, they are out in the field right now, they don't have time to help you witness a document. So that can be very challenging for some families. Or you're a socially isolated older adult, and maybe your healthcare provider and your social worker are the only people you know. Healthcare providers are not allowed to witness documents in California and in most states. Or, these might be people who have found themselves on the wrong side of the digital divide because they are in a rural area, they don't have service, or they can't afford certain technology, or they have low technology literacy. So things that I think many of us find annoying or a hassle become real significant barriers to certain populations.
Given those barriers, have you seen the legal community respond to this pandemic in any ways on this field?
Yeah, absolutely. So legal aid services are considered essential services in San Francisco. So for instance, our medical legal partnership for seniors clinic that we have at Hastings and that our students are involved in is still running and serving high need older adults and veterans. And we try to do as much of this as possible by phone, but there has certainly been some creative, witnessing through windows happening. For many older adults with cognitive impairment, they can certainly fill out these forms, and they should now, but they may lose capacity to fill out these forms in a few months, so they can't wait. And this is actually an urgent legal issue for them. And many of our colleagues around the city are also dealing with the economic strain of the pandemic around housing issues and conservatorship and a whole host of other things. We're also working on state level solutions to reduce barriers to advanced care planning, like the ones I've described. So we're working with medical legal partnerships and healthcare providers and other stakeholders to see if we can come to some solutions here. I've also seen law firms step up in really exciting ways. So I was approached by a Hastings alum, a fellow Hastings alum, who's now at Perkins Coie, who wanted to offer free legal assistance to healthcare providers at UCSF so that they could do their own planning. And at first I thought this sort of seemed a little bit maybe morbid, or maybe providers wouldn't want to do it. But the idea actually came from her colleague in New York, where healthcare providers were, working weeks straight during a surge and couldn't be home to take care of their families. And it was really like they were in a war environment. And when the military sends people off to war, they make all of them do estate planning. And so there's this idea that, hey, why aren't we helping healthcare providers put legal plans in place so that they can have the peace of mind that their families are taken care of, both while they're still alive and working during the surge, and also, unfortunately, for the very real possibility that they could become very seriously ill themselves. So we reached out together to San Francisco General, and they have started providing pro bono legal assistance to providers there. And she's done an amazing job mobilizing attorneys at her firm, and they now have the capacity to reach out to all clinicians at UCSF. So it's really some extraordinary work that they've been doing. And I should point out too that it was really important to us that we not just reach out to physicians, but that we reach out to the full hospital staff, particularly those who would be less likely to be able to access legal assistance and take full advantage of this resource. So it's really a wonderful example of the Hastings community partnering with UCSF on something really important.
Yeah, that does seem like a pretty amazing program. And I know that there are a lot of lawyers and alumni who might be listening to this and thinking about ways that they can get involved and help. Can you talk about any tools or resources that they could use, or any programs that they could get involved in?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, one, of course, is that we encourage everyone to do their own planning and to help others with their planning. And one tool that we recommend is called Prepare for Your Care. It's a free online advanced care planning tool that is available in multiple languages at prepareforyourcare.org. It was developed by a partner of mine, a physician researcher at UCSF, with whom I've been working for about a decade. And with grant support, we've been working with a team of Hastings students and recent graduates to provide her with legal research around advanced care planning law, and also to help translate complicated legal language into language people can understand. So the tool is really meant to be literacy inclusive, and it's also meant to be evidence-based and more clinically useful than many advanced directives tend to be from the clinician perspective. There are also educational videos that demonstrate how to ask questions of your healthcare provider, or how to talk to your agent about making decisions for you. You can skip straight to the advanced directive form, or you can have the program walk you through a series of worksheets. And if you have any visual impairments, you can have the program read it to you. So it's meant to be really inclusive and accessible. The other tool is if you're interested to learn more about current evidence-based practices in advanced care planning, I recommend a guide we produced with the ABA and the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Care Medicine called the Advanced Care Planning Counseling Guide for Lawyers. This was developed by a group of medical legal experts around the country and was adopted by the ABA through a resolution in the House of Delegates last year. So that guide is on the ABA website for free. If anyone is interested in providing pro bono assistance in partnership with our alumni at Perkins Coie, please let me know. Or if you're interested in the Medical Legal Partnership for Seniors, please let me know that as well. And I think the last thing I would say is just that as lawyers, we tend to spend a lot of time thinking about the forms themselves and their validity. But what the research has been telling us for the last decade is that the forms are important, but not sufficient. And what is really important are the conversations you have with your family and your doctors. And if you fill out a perfectly executed advance directive, but it sits in a drawer at home, it doesn't serve its purpose. It doesn't serve you, and you don't have your voice. So we really encourage lawyers to think about advanced care planning as a process of conversation and decision-making, and one that is ongoing and is not just about the form.
For more information and additional resources related to this episode, please visit our website at www.uchastings.edu/pandemic.
And while you're there, you can check out all the episodes in this series. Thanks for listening.